Welcome back to Christmas Projects, and in this episode I'm going to be fitting the split charge system. So it's actually turned up and we've got it from Rain Automotive. So not only in the box do you get an instruction little sheet of what kit you've got and a little QR code, which I think the QR codes are a nice touch nowadays. So let's have a look what's in it. So we got 2 fuses, an earth strap, long bit of cable, but I also need a leisure battery to connect it to. Luckily I looked online and one of the major suppliers is just down the road from me. So I've come over to sunny North Wales to Tanya Batteries to come and click and collect my batteries. Not only have they got a cracking website with loads and loads of choice, click and collect service. Hello, I've got order to pick up. Excellent, thank you very much. So what is the split charge and what does it do? So basically it isolates the 2 batteries, so your normal car battery or van battery and a leisure battery. And this is the battery I've got, it's the EXV 110. So it fits quite nicely in there, it's not too big. I didn't want to go too much bigger because it would have just caught on the edges there, and there's no room for any of the wiring. But we're going to run the wires down through there, underneath, and down to here somewhere. But as per standard, looking at the wiring for the convenience, and it just looks a little bit too tired, and it's actually quite dirty. So I think, oh yeah. While I was getting a battery, I managed to blag myself a t-shirt, which is always a win. So I'm going to wear this for the electrics. I think I can go in any time now, can't I? Yeah, I don't think that's going to be happening, will it? So thanks very much to Chris for sorting that out. No, I actually bought a couple of batteries. I'm only getting the 1 battery in. But first of all, I'm going to have to take off that seat. So the amount of dirt and grime that's underneath here is phenomenal. It's no wonder vans smell. See whether that will actually pull out. If not, I'll take the whole thing together. So it's basically taking off those 17s. There's a little T30 there, just to take that off. The actual mess that's underneath. And to be honest, this wasn't really used as a builder's van. It's 18 years worth of just grime and stuff. And actually it's less than that, 16 years worth of grime. Some of it's probably mine though. I think I'd best go a little bit more over the top with my OCD. Just take the carpet out, or the foam, the matting, whatever we want to call it, and actually just give that bit of a wash. So we're just going to pop these off. So just held in with a couple of little pops there. So, not really how I was expecting this episode to go. It is pretty manky down here. I won't bore you with the details. I'm basically going to clean this up, apply a little bit of paint just where there's a little bit of corrosion on there. It's an interesting one. Maybe you can answer this in the comments below if you're really into your T5s and you've had a few of these apart. Why have I got water inside that single grommet in the middle? I've smelt it. I'm not going to taste it. But it pretty much smells like cleanish water. I've never seen any water leaks. It's not rained for some time. Update the comments down below if you know where that water's coming from, because it's really going to intrigue me. Right, from other research I've done, we're going to use the little grommet that's down there that comes out over the heater box. We're just going to have to cut a little hole in this steel plate that's there. And as you can see, the kit has got 2 fuses on it, which is a good thing. So I'm going to mount it there. So I'm going to take the battery out, because 2 reasons. You should always work with the negative removed. So if you do have any issues, you're not going to blow one of these fuses. It gives me opportunity to clean the terminals and actually fit this properly. So I'm just going to do a little screw hole there. So I've got a little grommet that's probably about the size of that. So that's 8.5, 9mm internal diameter grommet. So because I am running under quite a time constraint, trying to get this van ready for Le Mans, which by the time this video goes out would have actually happened, and I probably had a nice time. There's another video somewhere in the past about the actual trip. Yeah, so we got one fuse at the battery side, and because there's a battery inside the vehicle, there's a fuse on the other side. So what I'm going to do, take off what looks like an 8 milli, and I'm going to feed it through that hole. And the grommet, I'm just going to cut a little hole in it to be the right sort of size so it can feed through. So we've got that through here. Just give it a pull. I've already drilled a hole in there, so it's softened some of the plastic round there. So this bracket's held on with 2 screws, so we've got one there and then one just underneath there. We've got T30s, so we'll tighten them up. I'm almost good to go. Back together, just gonna tighten it up. So I felt that this wasn't really as tight as it could have been, so I'm doing these up to, because they're only 8 millis, 5 Newton meters. So I put the original van battery back in, routed these wires, so I've actually took apart the little terminal post that sits on the top, which holds onto the alternator wire, and there's a little bit of surface corrosion just on there, so I decided to clean it all up, clean up the post, clean up the inside of the post there, so all this can have a really good mating surface, so there's going to be very little voltage drop, and all the power can actually go to the leisure battery as well as that battery, so technically more efficient, so that's a win. So I've routed some of the wiring round, so that interior is all sound deadened. That's something that wife's done without any intervention from me and only watching my previous video. So I think she's done a good job. So that proves that that video has certainly helped the novice who's got no idea how these things work and the full principles behind it and how important it is able to do a really good job. So the only thing I've had to do, which I've pulled her up about it and a bit of a sore subject, but anyway, is just push in a little bit further in these joins. But do you know what? It was only 1 or 2 and it was all right, so I'm quite happy with that. Managed to route some of the wiring down. That's the wiring that goes all the way to the back. So I think next job is going to be getting the interior back in. Now that's back in. It looks actually quite good. It's a lot more clean. There's so much dirt came off it. So we basically put loads of soap on it, scrubbed it, and then jet washed it. And it's still come up, but that's got 200,000 miles on it. Pulled all those cables through, handbrake cable, and a split charger. When I was stripping the wires, I did notice a little bit of green, so I stripped it back, and all it is one of the power feeds that goes to the central locking. Would have spared off and gone somewhere else, but because it didn't have whatever option it was just terminated there, so that's just bare copper in there, so it's got damp. The seat back in, I tried to work out how I'm going to get the cables from here to the back, because I am putting a fuse box under here, because I've got this pile of wires that all need fusing up and very little going that side, so trying to work out what to do. Luckily I still had some conduits, so a solid conduit pipe rather than the version that's split, so it picked that up at electrical wholesalers. And what I've done is just cut a hole just in there. It's very little foam because there's a solid piece there, part of the rib support of the chassis. Right underneath, there's quite a lot of room underneath it. It has squished it a little bit, but not massively. What I do is just take a little bit more of that foam insulation off, just to give it a little bit, maybe cut off that sound deadening. Try and work out how I'm going to route that. I think I'm going to cut into the floor a little bit and just route it at the back there. So I spent a little bit of time making the little wood panel. So I've got it so it sits exactly on there. I basically took the bottom of the base and used that as a template. Drilled through the holes. Now those, I used a little Christmas tree cutter, so that's stepped, so it sits on there. So that movement is fairly solid, so that's supported on all 4 as well as up against that. So it did need a little bit of trimming just to take off. Plenty of room there, and I've also accessed earthing stud that's there. If you're going to use an earth, you might as well use the factory one. I almost forgot, I got one of those little tubes that drains off all the battery acid, and there's a little grommet right underneath there that I managed to drill an 8mm hole, go straight in. So I'm going to have that run through, and then you just got to make sure it doesn't kink over. So I'm going to use a little bit of aluminium bar that was on the back of the floor when I turned it upside down, when I stripped the van down, because that is a perfect little lip on there that's going to go around the battery. So you can get proper little battery trays. Fortunately, I've completely forgot to buy one of those, which for 25-30 quid would have made this so much easier. All I'm going to do is chop off little bits of these, bend it over, and make a factory-like style bracket that sits on the base, and then as it screws down, that pivots and pulls it down. So that's what's holding the battery in. So I've got one at the front, one at the back. So I know exactly that there's no wires underneath here. So I'm screwing it, 2 screws here, I've got 2 at the back, and that's going to be solid. Right, so I've plugged that in. I think a lot of conversions don't have that, or not enough of them. So slight change of plan on fitting the earth terminal. So the Rain Automotive kit had a 10mm. So I've took off that, I've put a really good washer, I've cleaned all the underside, I've cleaned the top of there. Because I think the key thing is, good contact is made. Because not only do you need a really good 12-volt supply, you also need a good earth. But I am going to use that other 10mm that I've made a hole for the earth sensing wire. So here's my favourite bit, actually fitting the electronics. So the split charger relay is a voltage sensitive relay which kicks in at 13.6, 13.7 volts. So when your alternators get charging up and it's reaching 13.7 volts, it will then close over the contacts and it'll start giving its current to your leisure battery and start charging that up. As soon as it drops down a particular voltage, I'm looking at the instructions here, 12.8 volts, it will then close this contact and will just focus on that battery. So the good thing about the one from Rain Automotive, it wasn't that much more money buying the whole kit as if you were buying all the separate bits. So another good thing about this system, if you're running your 240 hookup and you have got a charger system back to this, and once it reaches a certain voltage, it will then start charging your normal battery as well. I'm going to screw it down to the wood base. And before I go any further, I'm going to create a new lead that goes to my fuse box. So I've sourced some cable, which is second-hand from another project. I think it's 60 amp cable, but we'll call it a 50 amp cable. So I'm going to strip that, feed that to the fuse box, because I'm not going to need any more than 15 at the fridge, 10 at the sockets max, so that's 25, 20 available at the cigarette lighter absolute maximum, but I don't know what draws 20 amps anymore. You got to remember, when it comes to wires and cabling, it's go too big rather than too small. Too small is always going to cause you more issues than you're ever going to have. So a little bit of heat shrink. So I'm not going to cover wiring all the rest of it. We're only concentrating on the split charge at the moment, but this is an important part of it. So that's, I think I got these little terminals from 12 Volt Planet, which is exactly where I got my little fuse holder from. I just read over it. And fire up the old little special hot air gun. Well, it's actually a gas soldering iron, but I seem to use it more for just shrinking heat shrink. Remember to run it through the same cable as it was before. Just going to nip that up, which is going to be very hard with one hand. See, that just looks a little bit too tight. What I'm going to do, just chop a little bit off here. So I've had to trim some of this little lip off, and I've just worked out I need to cut off a little chunk like that, a little square chunk, just to let it to sit nice on the battery, not sit too high. And just see where that little lip is? Just sits so much better, not too high. So we're almost all there. So screw that down. Screw the fuse down. So why is there 2 fuses? Because there's a fuse this side to isolate between here and here if there's an issue. And we're all ready to give it a go now. A little bit nervous, but fairly confident. So the first one I'm going to do is connect the leisure battery. And I've also took the time just to clean the inside of there, clean the inside in there with the wire wheel, just make sure it's got a perfect connection. So the ultimate test now, it's showing 12.7, which is a fairly full battery. I'm very happy with that. Let's start it and see what happens. Nothing yet. Oh, there we go. So fully functioning. That's actually quite good voltage, that 14. Very happy with that. I'm going to turn it off.
A few moments later.
Gone out yet? Still connected. We look at the voltage. 6.7. And there she goes. It works, it's safe, even though that, you know, many people would think it's not really a safe place to put the battery, but factory location is underneath the driver's seat. Another item that I got from 12 Volt Planet was I had to check that, a 6-way fuse box. So I don't need a lot of fuses. So anyone that's had any problems with their fridge, for example, because that seems to be a key one, has always been they fixed it by putting thicker cable. I know it's rated about 15 amps, so I'm going to put 30 amp cable to it. Plain and simple. It's got ins and outs, so a factory kit would probably have a bus bar and one cable. Maybe I should get one of them, because I know the part number for them and they're not overly expensive. Line up where I'm going to fit it and run my cable in from there. That sits down there, it just holds those wires down, but it's not too tight. That's just snug and nice. This is the 100 amp cable that I wired in, so I'm going to strip it and put 250 amps on there, because we're going to be able to spread the load along all these. The fridge wants its best possible feed coming from here. That made a bit of difference. Just take that all off. I've got that on there. I've decided to go for 3 of these. So even though that's 100 amp cable and this is potentially 50, there's going to be no more than 30. This is going to get distributed into smaller ones just for the back of there, because I've got 6 to fill. See, these blue enclosed ones, which again I got from 12 Volt Planet, do fit quite nicely on them. That's the maximum size cable. There's a main power feed that then splits into several, so I'm going to just tape that up just to protect it all up to about there. And anyone that's thinking, no, why has he done all that? That's confusing. Why don't we just daisy chain them all? It's about the amount of current that can go through there, and this is a perfectly standard VW way of doing it. Share the ampage. I want to get the electronics done, then I can get on with doing the back of here, because there's still so much to do. Oh. And the split charger system was actually from Rainer Automotive, which supply a lot of ready-made kits, so I'm very happy with the quality, the price, turnaround time. I think I literally had it next day. And of course, Tanya Batteries in sunny North Wales for also supplying the endurance battery or the leisure battery, and a t-shirt. But that's not part of this remit, so where's me crimpies? Can't find my crimpers. I'm sitting on them.